Welcome to the launch of another season of Canada Today, brought to you by Muslim Network TV. My name is Saamiyah Syed, and I'll be your host this season. My priority is to discuss issues and topics that matter to you, to Canadians, in great depth. And I'm going to do that by speaking to people who know about this specific topic. Together, we will cover issues such as social justice, the environment, being a Canadian Muslim, just to name a few. And this week, we're starting big. Just a few weeks ago, post secondary institutions held commencement ceremonies all across Canada, and it's a great occasion. It celebrates 3, 4, or even additional years of post secondary education. And for some, it comes to celebrate more than 12 years of their total educational journey. And that it's a great occasion. But what comes next is quite important as well. In fact, it's a journey that ideally starts before the commencement ceremony, but it can continue even up until now. And that is the idea of job searching. Throughout our segment today, we're going to cover when to start that process, what it looks like, and how to get through it as best as you can. And joining us today to speak about this are two guests from Muslims Achieving Excellence, or MAX, Sister Naheda Sahtout and Brother Sayed Wasti. Welcome to Canada Today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
What I think I'm most excited about for today is that both of you have very different backgrounds in terms of your education, but also your career field, which I think will help us get a good balance in the discussion.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my background. I apologize if I look a little bit sunburned. We just had a corporate board cruise event today. So if I look a bit red, it's probably because of that and not because I just came back from a vacation, as much as I wish I had. So for my background, I'm working as an actuarial associate for the past 3 years in a life insurer company. And just before that, I went to school in University of Manitoba as an international student and graduated. And then I was fortunate enough to land my current role and move to Toronto. And with the actual career, to get your designation, you have to write a bunch of professional exams. So I'm currently in that process.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Sister Naheda? What does your situation look like right now?
I went the very typical academic route. So I did a Bachelor's of Science Honors Biology from the University of Waterloo. I did a Master's from the University of Guelph, and then I went on to do a Ph.D. at the University of Saskatchewan. And while I am a scientist by training, I am currently doing acting as a policy analyst in the Government of Canada.
Nice. Okay, so I can see we have quite a broad range of backgrounds and career fields over here. So I think it would bring great depth to today's discussion. So in terms of the job search process, let's start right at the beginning. So say you're in your final year, you're a student, and you're starting to look for a job. Where does that process even start?
So ideally, like as early as possible. So my story, like I wasn't like in my last year, I kind of just tried to focus more on just like graduating rather than networking and rather than preparing for me after life after graduation. But ideally, in a scenario is like if you're in your fourth year by now, you have done a little bit networking. You have done I like one or two internships if possible. So you kind of have a rough idea of like, okay, which kind of like companies I want to like target and start. So it just depends on your situation. Like as early as possible is always the right way, but it's never too late as well. So when you start, like depending, so for my university, at the September, that was like the start of the fall, we had all the companies coming in and doing like networking sessions. So for us, that was the moment you can go and attend those networking sessions, have an idea of like which companies you want to work post grad, what kind of role you want to target, and just have an understanding of what a day to day looks like. So
Mhm.
for us, it was September, but it just like as early as possible is the ideal time.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's when you start job searching. And then I know of course, one of the most important, well, this is arguable, but one of the most important documents that you need to have on hand in order to even approach these companies is a resume, of course. So Sister Nahida, I'm wondering, how do you know what you should put on your resume and what to keep off of it?
It really depends on the job that you're trying to apply. And I find that the most important way or the most important thing to do and include in your resume is to make sure that you're tailoring it in a way that addresses their key messages on the job profile that they've advertised. So if you look at a job profile and you notice they are looking for leadership, they're looking for individuals with communication skills, they're looking for individuals who are working well in teams, then you want to be able to ensure that your resume highlights how you're a leader, how you work well in teams, and what sort of activities that you've done that showcase your communication skills.
Mhm. Brother Said, I'm wondering, would you say there's anything that's a definite no in terms of when you're crafting your resume, you should definitely keep off of that document?
I think I'll say like if it's not relevant, like you should ask yourself a question if this stuff is relevant to the job that you're aiming for. I feel like a lot of like times students put stuff that they think it's pretty cool, but it's actually not relevant to your work. So they end up like having a resume that's longer than a page. Like there's like a lot of stuff that's really not what the hiring manager wants to read or like wants to figure out if you're a good candidate. So just your resumes should be the good guideline is like it's one page, so there's not a lot of the stuff that you can put that's going to fit in one page, so you have to make it as relevant as possible to that job posting, as Nahida said. So if they're looking for, if you're financial reporting, then mention more on like any projects that you work if you don't have any relevant experience, rather than the core like and philosophy course that you took or like the grade that you got in that. So as possible, like as tailor made that you can do for that posting is always a good framework to apply.
If I
Mhm.
may also jump
And
in, you also have to remember that you're competing with thousands of other students for the same position. If your resume does not jump out at whoever's looking at it, the recruiter or the HR individual or even the hiring manager, then it's not going to jump out. They're going to put it in a pile that is, we're not interested. So you have to ensure that you're able to capture the attention whoever's looking at the resume right off the start.
mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And one last point I wanted to make. So we go a lot of like in our actual we have a lot of these once a year annual career fair where there's all the companies in Canada. They come and like students can come and network and apply. So there, like when you go there as an employee, you get like hundreds of resumes. So your attention span for each resume is like 5 to 10 seconds, and you just go and like you filter out the information you need. So for my role, what's most important is the actuarial exams, any relevant experience and stuff. So if you make it easier for an employer to find that information immediately, they will spend more time on your resume then, and they will pick it up. But if you're going to hide it away from a lot of like filter words, a lot of the non-relevant stuff, it's most likely they're going to go away and start a different resume.
Mhm. And nowadays, what I'm seeing a lot online is that people are actually using AI generators to craft their resumes for them. I mean, I don't know if either of you have tried it, but do you recommend that this is something worth trying?
I personally haven't tried it. And, it's great for individuals to have a backbone for their resume through these AI generated applications. One word of caution is that if other people, likely as you are using it, so are other people, and your resume just becomes something generic that is easily identifiable as having been generated by AI. So use it as a framework to sort of build the categories that you need your resume to build the backbone. But if you really want to stand out, it needs to be authentic, it needs to be in your own voice, and it needs to
Mhm.
showcase your talents.
Mhm. In tandem with the resume, nowadays there's also a great demand to have an online profile, and specifically that's going to be LinkedIn. How are you supposed to craft your LinkedIn so that when a hiring manager looks at it, for example, it's as efficient as possible?
I can try answering that. So like I will admit my LinkedIn is not very updated, but it's just when you're doing like when you're in that job hunting phase, it's really good. Like if you have a very like an active LinkedIn profile. So by that I mean you have a professional photo, and you have like a little bit description, and then you have whatever experience you have been able to gain, you have that on the profile. So that's basically the ideal thing that the employee wants to see. They go to LinkedIn, they see that your picture, they get a sense of an idea, and then they just quickly glance over your LinkedIn profile. So whatever stuff that you have put in your resume in terms for your experience, if you have that on LinkedIn, that's always a good idea.
Mhm. Now, I want to shift topics a little bit to the process of job searching. So, you've written out a generic resume, and then you have to actually start looking for those jobs, the postings. What are some resources, Sister Naheda, that people can access to actually find these postings?
So, I'm in a very different field than Syed, so I'll speak more so towards the academic slash government aspects of job hunting. And for academia, it's quite easy. Every university has their postings open on their website. You can easily go to the university website, look at their job and career page, and find the postings there. The Government of Canada, for example, has an entire website for job postings there. I do know, through LinkedIn, you can also find opportunities, and that's a really good place to keep search of. And I just wanted to bring back to the point of networking. Networking is so key, and you can often hear job opportunities and job availabilities through your networks. And I know some of my friends have gone and had informational interviews with people that they want, who work at a specific company that they want to work at, just as Sayed mentioned earlier, and they were able to see, oh, there's a job posting available, maybe you should apply for it. So networking is key, but also looking at the specific companies that you really want to. And maybe Sayed has anything else to add to that one.
Yeah, I think you covered perfectly. Like for me as well, like in my career, networking is really, really important. They say that like almost 70% of like jobs actually don't get posted in the job boards because by that time they've already filled it. So your main, I guess, like you want to be that person that has all this information. That's the only way you can get that is through networking. So if you see someone that graduated from your school, you have an alumni connection, that's your in, you can do a cold email to them. If you've worked at that company as an internship 2 years ago, you can always reach them back. So it's just like going on. Sometimes the best opportunity is like you go through the LinkedIn and you look at the company that you want to work at and just cold email someone who's actually in that role to kind of get an information interview. And then you never know, like at that moment when you reached out, maybe they're looking for someone, they're like in that process, and they like immediately find you. So that posting never will go out. They will never publish it, but in that way that posting was coming up and you reached out and you were at the right place at the right time, kind of thing. So networking is the key, as Nahida said. And then the other is like you look at your school board, if there's like a company portal that just, or LinkedIn, so all of that information is out there. But if you do networking, that's ideally the best approach.
Networking is a big topic and definitely something that we have in the books for today. But first, we're going to take a very short break and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back. You're watching Canada Today on Muslim Network TV. Today we're discussing what comes after graduation, and we're speaking with Sister Naheda and Brother Sayed from MAX, or Muslims Achieving Excellence, to learn more about that discussion on what the job searching process looks like. Now, just before the break, we had touched on the topic of networking. And what I think is very unique about networking is that, it's not really a step that it comes either before or after resume tailoring or whatever. It's really throughout, or it's an ongoing process. And it's a big one. We've all heard it and we struggle to implement it. But as a student, what are some ways that you can learn or even engage with networking opportunities?
I can start. As a student, one of the things that I was really proud of is stepping out of my comfort zone and becoming a student leader. And that gave me an opportunity to sort of be on the same level as senior administrators, community members who are engaged in the university, but also sort of support students throughout. So it helped me be able to open up in the sense of I was more comfortable speaking with strangers and individuals that I did not know, which was not normal for me. So as an introvert, it's really difficult for me to go into public spaces and speak. And so that opportunity really opened up my ability to do so. In academia, you do get a lot of career fairs, as Sayed mentioned before the break. There's often job individuals who are offering positions in their company or, in their industry or government or whatever it is that come to the university and offer these career fair type events. And that is another opportunity for you to sort of have your resume on hand, sort of go to individuals in these hiring positions and speak to them. Stepping out of your comfort zone, definitely, but also being able to just highlight who you are as an individual and what you can bring to the role.
Brother Sayed, I'm wondering, was this process the same for you? Like, contrary to Sister Naheda, networking for me was pretty difficult. Even though I find myself to be an extroverted person, I didn't know how to approach people and learn what to talk to them about. So how did you experience networking and how did you go about it?
Definitely, I had a similar experience as you, Samia. It was pretty hard at the start. So when the first time I was introduced by someone, like I was just reaching out to them cold, and I had a talk. It was a disaster. It went over the 30 minutes. Even though I had come prepared, I had all the questions and stuff, but there was a lot of things that I wasn't able to articulate. And then it just comes from everything in life. It just comes from practice. So like the more you do, the more you get better. And then there's a lot of resources that you can utilize, especially online now. Like I remember the first time I did it, I started like researching and I found out a book called 20-minute networking meeting. So that was my first time getting an understanding of how a professional meeting is supposed to look like. How there's an agenda, how you want to be respectful of their time, and you want to be, if you initiated the meeting, then you should be the one that's taking the lead and asking questions and setting the meeting. So that was my first learning experience. But I know if you're a student, your first thing you should do is join like a student club. Ideally, like your university already has something that's relevant to your career. And then I know there's a lot of like career workshops that they have that actually teaches you a lot of like mentorship, like a lot of networking, how to conduct a meeting and stuff. So every like school has that department. So if you're still in school, utilize that resource and just look online, like a lot of resources. I think that book I recommend to all of my friends when they graduate and when they start networking, because it's just very like action oriented book. It literally tells you each step that you should be conducting meeting. And once you realize that when you're graduating and you do a meeting like that, it's very easy to impress the other person, that because they know that you have come prepared and you've been very professional, and it just sets a really good impression.
Mm-hmm. Now, networking is a big topic, and I'm wondering, Sister Nahida, once you establish contact, you've met up with someone a few times, you've discussed your interests, heard from them a little bit more. How do you maintain that contact or even reach out to them later when you're looking for a job?
I think it's important to know that you don't have to be constantly talking to the individual to maintain an open line of communication. So um, if there's something that I've done recently, because it isn't easy to maintain a line of communication with someone that you're potentially not close to and that you have an interest in knowing about their career and keeping that line of communication for your future. But LinkedIn is an opportunity to do just that. So, everyone posts about their personal achievements, their milestones on LinkedIn, and being open to commenting, for example, congratulations, that's a really great achievement, looking forward to seeing what's next. Something like that, as simple as that, is a really good way to keep a line of communication with someone who you're not potentially really good friends with. Being open to having informational interviews, being open to reaching out to them when you have a question about a certain career move, and also considering individuals who you might reach out to as mentors or supporters. These might not be individuals right off the bat, but these are individuals, you can keep that line of communication and say, hey, I'm interested in having you as a mentor or someone I can reach out to when I'm really confused about my career and my next steps. And I found that most everyone, I don't want to say 100%, but 99% of the individuals on this planet are very willing to be supportive of others and helping them along their career journey.
Yes, I know personally a mentor can be very helpful, especially when you're just breaking out into that field. Moving on now from the topic of networking, I know we'll touch upon it later on as well. But say that, you've gone that whole process, you've found a job, you've applied for it, and now you've managed to get an interview. For many people, this is the first time that, they've come out of their books and they're going to be sitting in front of either a panel of judges or even one person. Uh, and they have to speak about themselves. How do you suggest students start preparing for this meeting? Brother Sayed, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I think like the mock interviews goes the best way. So if you have someone, if you have a friend, if you're in university, if you're in school and you have that department where you can practice interviews, or just ask a friend because you think you have a very good answers, but it's always good when you're able to speak them loud so you know how you're articulating them. So that's the first step would be like having a friend, having that someone that where you can like practice. And then the second thing is just like being like going online and just searching for it. So you want to make it very specific because if let's say you're applying to a tech company, you want to be prepared for the interview that they have. They might be less like less behavioral question. They would be more technical versus some other company that you're applying. So always just play by your strengths to see if you're applying for that company. Just go on Google and try to search as much that you can about what kind of interviews they conduct. And I also believe like when you're doing networking and you're able to like speak to someone in that company, maybe they're not the hiring manager, maybe they just work there, but at least from there you can learn some inside information on like how do they what kind of interviews they're expecting. Is it a lot of technical, is it case studies? And then you can also find out some information like how's the work culture, what kind of program they have for students, is there growth opportunity? Because what I've noticed is like the interview, the 50% of the part is just like them asking questions, but then another 50% is you asking questions to them. So that's the point, that's the place where you actually impress them a lot. So as much detail and like specific questions that you have to oriented and show that you have done the research, it's gonna go a long way in your favor. So that's one tip. And then the second, just tell yourself like it's never as bad as you think it is. I've come out from the interviews where I feel like, oh my God, it was so bad. But then it didn't end up being that bad. So just like as long as you do your practice and just like you have your stuff and the rest is in the hands of God, and then just be confident and just tell yourself that it wasn't as bad as you think it was.
Mhm. I think what's really important, especially for the interview process, is as you mentioned, Brother Sayed, is to remember that it's not only you applying for the job, but you're also choosing if this company is the right fit for you, and if that position is what you're looking for, if it will help you with your future growth or what like. So it's a little bit of a two-way street that you're going there, and the interview will help expand that really. Now, say that you've gone through your interview, you've gotten the job offer, and they've sent over the document. They're giving a few days for you to read over it and get back to them. Sister Naheda, what should people be looking for when they first read over that job offer?
So every sector has a different approach to contracts and your offer letters. So just from experience, I think one of the most important things is to understand what sort of salary is definitely important, and understanding whether the salary is really reflective of your skills and what you can bring to the role. The other thing is understanding whether your position is part of a union. That brings in and of itself different benefits, different perks, but also, it's a different mode of work as well. The benefits that you can get sort of, and then the most important I would say is the job duties and your responsibilities as an employee. What is expected of you and what is expected of you to do well in that role, and how your role is integrated into the bigger picture. And I think most job offers will provide that opportunity for you. And there's always space to ask questions. Like,
Mhm.
you don't just get an offer letter and you have to sign it without having a conversation. If you feel that there's an unfair um, or some of the job responsibilities weren't really portrayed in the interview process or on the job application, then that's something to have a conversation about, and see what are the top priorities, and can this be rephrased, or can we frame this in another way? So there's always opportunities to have conversations.
Mhm. Now, as we get closer to the end of the interview, I want to ask this question because I think it's very important to keep in mind. The whole process can be quite grueling at times. Many people get rejection after rejection, and it can be tough. So, Brother Sayed, I'm wondering, what is some advice that you would give to people who are having a tough time while they're braving themselves throughout this process?
I think the advice that I got was that you only need one yes, right? So it's at the end of the day, it is a long process, right? Like maybe I think like when you're proactive, it definitely helps, right? So if you're just applying every day, you're applying like three job postings and then you're getting three rejections, then it's good time to ask yourself, is this really a good way for you to utilize your time? Maybe you should reflect the strategy that you're using. So always be open for like feedback. If you had an interview and you didn't get an offer, and it's been a process, there's been the stages where you've been going through interviews but you're not getting the final offer, then always reach back and just be like, hey, I was really good, thank you so much for the interview, I had a great experience, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get the role. I'm wondering if you have 5 minutes, if you have a 20 minutes phone call, I can get some feedback so I can improve. So I think that's just the way you have to keep on thinking. So if you're getting a lot of rejections, that's not bad. Maybe you're just waiting for the next yes. But as long as you're open for having feedbacks, you're reflecting your strategies, and then you're changing your strategy if needed, I think it just makes the process much more easier and you're able to see the end that you are making some progress. But yeah, just to go back, I think there are cases where like you have to go certain months of period where there's tough on you, you're just outside after school, you're starting like a new professional life and you have no idea where it's going. But just keep telling yourself that it's just God has a plan and you just need one yes. So that's the advice that I'm gonna say. Yeah.
Just one, yes, that's great advice. But same question for you, Sister Naheda. What would you tell people who are feeling a little low as they go work themselves throughout this process?
So, not to repeat what Sayed said, so I will add something else. Be open to the possibility of a career change. We often go into academia and then graduate thinking exactly this is where I want to be and this is what I want to do. But be open to the idea that, there's other positions that will be able to use your skills, that will be able to use the talents that you could bring, and that you can actually grow in to get to where you need to be. So maybe your first career position is not where you expect it to be, but it's something that will add to your resume. It's something that will add to your skill set, and it's definitely a stepping stone to where you want to be. So if you studied science, science is a very competitive field. There's not a lot of positions available. It's either you go into industry or academia, and academia is not exactly hiring a lot of individuals. So be open to the idea that, okay, I need a career change. I need to be applying, broadening my scope and applying to positions that maybe I didn't think of at the beginning. And you never know, right? You might be interested in that. That could be your career in the end. And that could be something that you vest your time in.
Yeah, you never know where life will end up taking you. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Sister Naheda and Brother Sayed, for coming on to the show and taking us through what was a very detailed but informative session on what comes after graduation. It was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Likewise.
That's it for Canada Today. This was your host, Saamiyah Syed. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to catch us every week on Muslim Network TV or even see some of our past episodes on our YouTube channel. Otherwise, stay safe and until next time.